One thing I always like to do on professional shoots especially, but even right now I'm actually doing it, is recording my audio and video separate, but still running audio to the video. And what I mean by that, which I can actually show you right here because it's how I do this setup too, I'm recording the video on my GH4, but I also have this microphone run to my Tascam DR60 back here. I'm recording audio here, and I'm sending signal from the DR60 to the GH4. So inevitably, if something were to go wrong, I would have my audio in two separate places. And that's really important because when you think about it, most videos that people produce, they're driven maybe by the audio first and foremost. I know it's crazy, right? That you're doing a video, but audio is probably the most important. So specifically something like this, right? If the video died and I had none of it, the card got corrupted, it glitched out, it got lost, I'm an idiot, I threw it away, whatever, I would still have the audio over on my Tascam. And I could use that with like a picture over it or B-roll or stock footage or something. Now, if the Tascam card goes missing, I still have the audio on the GH4, and that's perfect because even though it's not as high quality audio, you can still hear me, you can still understand me. It's usually the audio that I use when I post these videos. So I've got the audio in two places, it's safe, and it's worth it because it really doesn't take up any extra space. Now, you might say, well, you should just record to camera, that way you have your video and audio in one place, and you don't need an external recorder. That's very dangerous in my opinion. The file sizes for audio are so small that it's practically insignificant. I mean, we were talking about recording 4K on the GH4. You can easily eat up a 64 gig card in like an hour and a half, more or less. To eat up 64 gigs of audio would be very difficult recording, stereo tracks. Now, if you had multiple tracks, then okay, maybe, but even then, the file sizes are so much smaller and the audio quality is better out of an external recorder than the internal stuff on the GH4. And this would even apply to, someone asked me about this in regards to the Blackmagic Video Assist 4K. Why not just run audio right to that? Well, the Video Assist 4K actually makes me kind of nervous because, you're recording your video externally, and what if that card were to fail? Ideally, I'd like to record internally on the GH4 as well, but in 10-bit mode, you can't do that, so you have to be in 8-bit mode, but then that isn't maximizing the external recorder to its fullest potential, so that's probably another video. But in any case, I like to have two backups. Well, with a camera, it's kind of hard. The file storage gets really big really fast because you're duplicating, one-to-one, essentially everything. And so that could have its pros and cons. Maybe you want to do that. Maybe you want to dump your cards right away and back them up. You could do that. But really, to shoot redundantly, if you're doing photo work, and you have a camera that can handle two cards simultaneously, maybe you want to do that. With video, maybe not as much because it just eats up so much hard drive space. But for audio especially, I think it's totally worth it to have the backup safety track so that, if the camera were to fail and you lost that video and audio, you would still have the audio, right, from the interview or whatever it was, which you could put something else over, whether it's a motion graphic, an animation, stock footage, pictures, text. It could be anything, but you have the audio, you have the core of what the video is ultimately going to be. So that's just my word of advice, that if you are doing any kind of, especially on professional work, but even on stuff that you want to make sure you don't lose, but especially on professional paid work where someone's paying you to make sure you get the capture, right? Ideally, you don't want anything to fail, but sometimes cards go bad, something happens, footage gets misplaced. You do everything you can to make sure that doesn't happen, because that's like worst case scenario. You never want that to happen. But in that worst case scenario, you'd want to make sure that you had some kind of audio backup just so that you could save some fraction of the work that you did. Because you don't want to walk away with nothing, right? If you lost all of your cards, that would be really bad. So if one card goes bad, at least you got the backup. And really, it's safe, it's higher quality anyway. And yeah, you got to sync it in post, but that's really not that hard. It really isn't, unless you've got thousands of clips that you need to sync audio. Okay, maybe you have a case, but if it's a few interviews, some stand-up, some talking head stuff, in my opinion, there's really no excuse not to just have the secondary backup just for those situations where it is worst case scenario and you've lost the card. Hasn't happened to me yet. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Like, I hope it never happens. But I'm glad to know that I have a backup in case it were to happen.